Okay, Gaurav. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another special AccuKnox live stream today. My name is Ram. I've been hosting a handful of these for what I think is the fifth time now. But anyhow, we had a bit of a short break because of KubeCon and all of these fun events that have been happening in Meet Space. And now we resume with our cadence of wonderful sessions. So I'm happy to be back with Gaurav. Hello, Gaurav. Gaurav is a
Hey
product
Ram.
manager for some of AccuKnox's tools, both open source and commercial. And today we have a somewhat distinct episode where we cover some stuff about compliance and things like that. We typically focused on a lot of the hands-on developer and DevOps security stuff in the past few streams. But this one, we're going to take a slightly different approach and do compliance. And typically, when we say compliance, it's a lot of things that engineers feel that they don't need or they don't have to understand or they don't have to quote unquote bother with. But I find that that's not really the case. And Gaurav is here to tell us why and also show us around some of the cool stuff that they've built around compliance and how you can keep track of it without getting into too much of toil and things like that. So, with that introduction, Gaurav, why don't you kick us off on today's stream and what it's all about?
Okay. Let's let me share my screen. Let me know when it is visible. Hey, thank you, Ram, for again one of the kind hosts to give all the you know time and you can say energy towards some of the important topics in the cloud security industry that we usually look for. So thank you, Ram, again for orchestrating this one. So what we are trying to talk towards is how compliance is important and how there are different approaches to compliance. I'll keep this short, probably 15 minutes, and then last 5 minutes, and we will open up for the questions. So, of course, there are not many segments that we can talk about from the Equinox perspective, but here we talk about specifically compliance and touching upon the areas of cloud and the applications wherever they are installed, whether it is in cloud or on-prem or in CI/CD. So let's try to understand. There are some few basic questions. If you are there, if you're watching this live, try to answer that. What are the types of compliances that you usually see? For instance, data privacy and protection, information security. Can you name few more that comes to your mind when you talk about compliance? What kind of compliance people do generally look for?
So,
So,
so
any
compliance in a lot of cases for me has been this very last stage of the DevOps process. A few weeks before somebody releases something, they're talking about compliance. Or in some cases, when we brought on like a new client who's one of those big ones, then they talk a lot about compliance. And I was a very young engineer, probably too young to understand a lot of what is going on in the conversation, even. But that's really what it's been for me, to be honest. But enlighten me a little more.
Yeah, so we talked about the stages. It can be a little bit after, of course, the setup and the overall flow integrated for the security, and then you do the compliance to ensure that your company is conformed to some of the known well practices. But this question stands from the perspective of what are the type of compliances industry looks for. Like for example, data privacy is a concern. It can be industry wide, information security, and there are a few others. Any comments to that? Like, what do you think? What can be other compliances type? Okay, so let's just,
Just a
yeah,
reminder to folks, you can interact with the speaker and the presenter and the host, obviously. If you comment on whatever platform you're viewing this on, we're monitoring all of those feeds and we can bring your questions up as you have them. Sorry, Gaurav, carry on.
of course. So let's just uh, deep dive into it. So there are data privacy and protection, and the compliances such as GDPR for Europe region, primarily CCPA, HIPAA. They are primarily focused towards data privacy and protection, ensuring that industry wide data privacy is something that we care about. If it is in health industry, yeah, they care about HIPAA. If they are, of course, a consumer in US, they need to care about this act, GDPR from Europe. So basically, they all are centered towards data privacy. There are some information security compliance also, which runs from industry, general IT industry, and it can also expand to others as well, industry verticals. So commonly heard compliances are ISO, the whole series, 27001, and there are others also. Uh, NEST, again, the whole series, 853, 800, 171, and the whole NEST conformance, NEST CSF, and the SOC 2, the most popular one. So usually that goes across all the industries for information security and how you manage the data within and how you ensure that the security is in place and check. There are others also like financial compliances, which are related to payment industry, PCI DSS, and then there are regulatory compliances. There can be these are all regulatory compliances, by the way, but there can be some specific scenarios where you can say that okay, let me check across MITRE or maybe some other suite, which is also ensuring that your workloads are secured, your application is secured, your infrastructure is secured. So there can be generic ones as well which might not be catering to a need, but it's a overall, you can say, outside an attack perspective from the attacker's point of view. So MITRE attack framework is one such popular compliance that usually have those attack perspective in mind and then ensures that you have infrastructure or application level conformance to these kind of different attack scenarios. And you need to ensure that you have sufficient security guidelines in place to ensure different techniques and tactics that these MITRE attack advocate for. You can also have some internal compliances, which is specific to the industry, but there can be much more. I'm just trying to show you that compliances are always driven by a goal, and that's what they are for. So, these are some of the popular categories, but there can be more. Okay. So from AccuKnox perspective, we'll go to the platform and we'll see, but it's basically we can support 30 plus compliances across AWS, Azure, and GCP. It'll give you the overall delta change over a period of time. That's very important for our users to understand how they are doing on the compliance with the configuration change on the platform with different change requests and organization raises for different support activities. So we do that. We show you the trend line and all those nice dashboard. But let's just go into that. So let's suppose if you select any compliance, we'll also show you from the platform, but you'll see subcontrols, conformance against that, and you can go to a detailed view of a subcontrol to see how you are doing on those, controls related to those. And yeah, so next quick question so that we can also shift the gears to what are the type of compliances run. So how do you execute the compliance in your organization? We might have seen that, hey, I'm nearing my SOC 2 renewal that usually is for an year. And I'm wanting to go to that. So that's kind of an audit based compliance, and that happens once a year, right? Or probably depends on the company's strategy. It can be for yearly as well. So from that perspective, Ram and the audience, do you happen to know what are the other kind of compliances run that industry adopts? A continuous compliance, periodic compliance. Do you know any other compliances execution type?
No, I'm afraid I'm drawing a blank here.
Good. So let's just go into that. Okay. Apologies. So this is compliance run type. If you see event driven, which is okay, let me simplify this. There are several several ways to execute and compliance. Okay. So there is continuous and periodic, which is the most popular one. Periodic means at like every Tuesday you run it and you give me the result. Continuous is all the times you ensure that you keep on checking whether it is passing or failing. Other than that, and if you see the circle here, it's like always on. And it's like once there is, of course, a post execution, which means that you have a posture, you have a security posture today. And in the period of that, like when the frequency reaches, it will just trigger a scan. So it's basically a kind of, you can say, after you have every setup and all that, kind of, you can say that post check. That's why it's kind of a clockwise. Now, there are others also, preventative. That's the only thing that I want you to draw your attention towards. The only type of compliance run or execution that can happen and enforce compliance, not from the perspective of, hey, let's check after everything is done whether you're compliant or not. It will ensure that you always are compliant if you have those compliance checklists and if you have a tool that supports that preventative compliance check, which means that not only it will check whether it is compliant or not, it can also enforce and let you be at that compliance uh, posture at all times. What I mean by that is there is a NIST terminology for this, continuous diagnostic and mitigation. It will keep on checking for the compliance. It will keep on enforcing if you are deviating from the compliance, and you will always be 100% compliance in that. That's the most important one, and that's the key takeaway from this slide. There are others also, which are all post check, periodic, detective, corrective. All happens for some compliance controls that you have, and you check it for that. Like detective, you just want to check whether you have any kind of you can say exposed information or some checks that you want to put in place. A corrective is basically you need to ensure that something never happens, like employee should never see the data of other employees, so you have some controls to ensure that they cannot query on network and xyz, similar to that. Now, there are other types of also like on-demand third-party audit, which is what I was speaking about when you're renewing any SOC 2 or any other compliance renewal. That's a third-party audit. There is a manual check also that you can always do on-demand also. But then these are all the execution type. Without you know making this a lot more verbose, what I'm trying to tell you that industry usually prefers something called continuous compliance, where you always keep on checking, and also preventative. That's the, you can say, the most advanced form to do that. Event driven is also there. When something happens, check for it. But usually you would not want to like basically, if you don't want to deal with a lot of compliance controls checklist and that typical cat and mouse game of hey, I'm not confirmed, hey, somebody made a change request, hey, I need to ensure that these are also compliant, whatever the change request has been done, we need to correct it and then ensure that the company or organization is still having good posture of security or compliance conformance. That part, if you don't want to go into, there should be a preventative measures to ensure that there are automated way to handle those things. Okay. Yep. Any questions?
So there's a there's a part within the product for all of this, right?
Yes. So we have,
Within
correct.
Accu.
Great question. We have a periodic scan. We have periodic compliance. We have continuous compliance. We have preventative compliance. These are the most popular
Mhm.
ones, and we have all of them.
And so, in your opinion, as a product person, who are you designing for? Are you designing for the dev folks or the ops folks, or is this for a completely different persona altogether who keeps tabs on compliance stuff.
Yeah, so it's basically for, you can say, cloud ops, whoever is managing AWS, Azure, and GCP, and also for any IT personals as well, who is looking for, like, for example, if you have a hybrid environment, some footprint in on-prem, some footprint in cloud, and you need to have conformance. So then, primarily, you can say DevSecOps can be a target audience. For some part of it, cloud ops can be a target audience. IT ops or IT guys can be one of the target audience, but anybody who is concerned with infrastructure and the application for the operation and maintenance, this will be one of the KRA to ensure that compliance is always maintained. Does that make sense, Ram?
Yeah, yeah, got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry to disturb. You
No,
can
of
go on.
course. So from the preventative compliance, we have that for MITRE, NEST, CIS, and PCI. We can help you always stay conformed to these compliance framework. And if there are any deviation, we'll be actively enforcing kind of a mitigation, and you'll always be 100% compliant to this. I hope that makes sense. So, of course, how do we simplify everything? So the idea is, of course, there will be a lot of noise. Of course, there will be a lot of data. So there is an automation that is required for findings lifecycle, ticketing lifecycle, for the compliance failures that we get. But it is also important to ensure that there is a Gen AI accelerated remediation. And to that end, you can ask your questions like, how am I doing on PCI, HIPAA? How can you help me to remediate this particular issue? It can help you do all of those things. We can show you from the platform also. And there are integrations as well. So, Ram, Atharva, how are we doing on the time? Can we go to the platform and showcase few things? Or
I think we definitely need to showcase a few things.
okay,
Next few minutes, I
let's
think.
let's try to quickly show this. Okay. So this is from the platform. You can onboard your cloud accounts, AWS, Azure, GCP, and in flick of a button, you'll have compliance across all the applicable compliances for your cloud, and it will show you everything. And everything is agentless again. These checks, SOC 2, PCI, NEST series, ISO, iTrust, HIPAA, FedRAMP, CCPA, CIS are the popular ones. And if you happen to know more details view of these compliance, all you have to do is click on that. It will try to get the overall asset uh, by asset summary, compliance score, the list of compliances, subcontrols, you can say. And in that also, let's suppose this particular, there are one compliances that are failing for these, you can say, controls. There are others also that you can see, which are mentioned. So the overall posture, it becomes very clear from this perspective. Let me take, for example, some other use case, like for example, SOC 2, which might be generic, not just cloud specific. And then we can see some more details into that. So SOC 2 type 2. Now, what I'm seeing here is for a cloud account, I can see across all the multiple cloud accounts as well. But you see different controls are there. And then I can just drop it down and have a quick context of what are the things which are failing. And of course, by controls. I can look at other things as well. So if you see here, this part, security contacts enabled, security policy alerts enabled, security solution logging. I don't need to be a software expert to understand these things. I can get a quick context, and all I have to do is just go to a detailed view of these things and understand more on those compliances. So it filtered for the failed ones. You can also filter it for other things as well. Now, if you click on that, it will say that ensure that security contact phone number and email address are set. So this something is there is a recommendation for that. What you need to do, there is a solution reference link, and there are other compliances that are affected by this. Similar to that, what you can do is you can go back and you can have a little bit more details on. Of course, there will be past controls also for this particular event that you can check if it is applicable, or you can go alternatively to the summary view again, where you will be able to see compliances across all the framework. And you can click, okay, this is selected for a cloud account, which is not applicable. Let me select something that has the data. So for example, AWS, let me go with that.
Gaurav, while that loads, how is this telemetry extracted?
Okay, so this is from API. So we have a read-only permission on your cloud. You can just give us I am read-only permission for AWS for app registration with security audit functionality on Azure, and we'll be able to gather all this information. Nothing else is required.
Got it. Thanks.
So ISO 27001, if I click on that, and it will tell me overall summary. All I have to do is controls against malware that is failing a lot. Let me go to a detailed view and check on this. So it will open up in a new screen so that my context is maintained. And if you see, a lot of things are failing. And these are MITRE AWS attack framework, the popular ones. And if I click on that, you'll see that, okay, ensure CloudFront distributions have WAF enabled. I have this issue, and there are you can say plus 10 compliance frameworks that are affected by this. If you solve this, it will solve across all this. Now, let me quickly give you a context. Go to Ask Era GenAI powered pilot and ask the question how to remediate, which I just copied the description, and it will just give you the answer for
Hmm.
that. You don't even have to look for it, look for the solution documentation that is mentioned here, and figure out what can be the solution. So it basically learns on your security posture based on your tenant only. So you can ask questions on your compliances, you can ask questions on remediation. It can give you all those contexts as well. And you can use that to solve these things as well. So kind of accelerated remediation on this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And last thing I want to understand before we sort of draw to a close, when dealing with CVEs, which we obviously do a lot, oftentimes we can go to production with a certain minimum or reduced number of CVEs and things like that. How does it work in the compliance world? Is it like a very binary, you're either fully compliant or you're not kind of thing? Um, and you cannot get certified or something like that? Or is there like a leeway or an allowance for not complying with, say, 90% or 95%? Or how
Yeah,
does
it's
that work?
always a binary. Either you're compliant or not. There is no two way about it. So that's a little bit simpler, but again, it's not going to be easy because, like I earlier said, there are always a lot of changes happen in an organization over a period of time, and then you have to that has security implication as well as compliance implication. So how
For
do you
sure.
ensure that you have coverage towards compliance all the time? You cannot, unless and until you have a preventative measure to auto handle things or automated compliance check. It will be a kind of a journey that you'll always have to travel. You'll always have to look for the compliance check, whether you're passing or failing, do the remediation, run the scans again, and see whether you're conformed. Or you have automated checks in place, preventative or automated, and it will always check and it will auto fix on the violations or the security misconfigurations or the compliance violations.
No, I think that was great. I think tools that can keep tabs on these, give a single pane of glass transparency on compliance issues that exist, and work with a bring your own cloud kind of mode. I think all of those are excellent features to have, and it's wonderful to see the kind of coverage you've built around this somewhat underserved and unserved area, so to
Yeah.
say. So yeah, I thanks for giving us a lot of context on not just what compliance is, but also downstream to that. how you can monitor it and how you can remediate things. And obviously, adding that Gen AI flavor to everything these days helps a little, I guess.
Of course, it does. Yeah, that accelerates the boring compliance, uh, chase, you can say.
Hmm. Cool. Thanks so much, Gaurav. I think this was a very informative and wonderful session. If folks have things to follow up on, or you require a specific demo and things like that, there's a QR up there that you can sign up for. Just follow that. And yeah, hope to see you on a future live stream. We have so many wonderful topics coming up in the weeks to come. We're trying to strike a nice balance between a lot of the technical stuff and some stuff for non-engineers as well, or at least topical areas of interest that might not necessarily have to do with engineering. So hope to see you on a future stream. Thank you for tuning in today, and thank you, Gaurav, for spending your valuable time and trying and
That's,
helping educate the community, which I think is so important.
thank you so much, Ram, for having me. Like always, it was pleasure speaking with you, and thank you